Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're wrestling with this really profound idea about human error. You know the saying, often credited to Artemis Ward?
Oh, the one about what gets us into trouble.
Exactly. It ain't so much the things we don't know that get us into trouble. It's the things we know that just ain't so.
Yeah, that's really the core puzzle for today, isn't it? We're not talking about, weird fringe beliefs.
No.
We're looking at these really common, compelling facts from everyday life. Things people widely accept, but, well, they just kind of crumble when you look closely at the evidence.
Like these beautiful, satisfying lies we tell ourselves.
Precisely.
And we've got two classic examples right here in the source material. Let's start with that story, you hear it all the time, about infertile couples who adopt a child. And then suddenly they're more likely to conceive naturally. The idea is, oh, the stress is gone.
Right, it's this wonderful narrative, isn't it? Like cosmic justice or relaxation finally bringing results.
It feels so right.
It does, but the evidence is actually pretty clear. Clinical research shows adoption just doesn't increase fertility rates.
Really? No effect.
Statistically, the couples who conceive after adopting, they're no different from those who kept trying without adopting and eventually conceived, or those who adopted and didn't conceive. It's just chance playing out.
Huh. But why is that belief so common then? It feels like the universe rewarding good deeds or something. It's such a compelling story.
Exactly. We want to believe it. And that leads into the second thing we're tackling, this deeply held conviction that, personal interviews are crucial for high-stakes decisions.
Oh yeah, like getting into prestigious schools or top executive jobs. We spend hours prepping for those interviews. We totally believe those gatekeepers can, spot talent or potential way better than just looking at scores on a page.
And yet, the research, again and again, shows that decisions based just on objective data, they're at least as good as decisions that include subjective interviews.
At least as good, not better.
Often better, actually. But the gatekeepers, the decision makers, they really cling to the idea that the interview tells them something vital, even when the data says otherwise.
Wow. Okay, so our deep dive mission today isn't really about debating if these things are true. The evidence seems pretty solid.
Right.
The mission is to figure out why. Why do we believe these things so strongly? What are the systematic cognitive biases that create and, maybe more importantly, maintain these errors?
And a great place to start is how we try to see order where there's really just chaos. The clustering illusion.
Okay.
The classic example here is the hot hand in basketball.
Oh, come on. The hot hand is definitely real. Everyone who watches basketball knows this. A player hits 2-3 shots in a row.
Yeah.
They get in a zone, they feel it.
They're on fire.
Yeah. And they're just objectively more likely to make the next one because of that momentum, right?
Well, your intuition lines up perfectly with 91% of knowledgeable fans they surveyed. They figured a typical 50% shooter would probably hit, 61% after making a couple?
Sounds about right.
And only maybe 42% after missing a couple. The belief is that success feeds success.
It just feels right. It's psychology, confidence, momentum.
Well, this is where the cold, hard data comes in and kind of bursts the bubble. Researchers actually analyzed the shooting records. They took the Philadelphia 76ers the whole 1980-81 season.
Okay, so what did they find? Please don't tell me momentum isn't real. I might cry.
Well, get ready. Momentum, it seems, is mostly a story we tell ourselves after the fact. The records flatly contradicted the belief.
Oh, way.
Players were not more likely to make a shot after making the previous one, or 2 or 3.
Seriously?
In fact, if anything, there was a tiny statistically meaningless trend the other way. They shot slightly better after a missed 54% compared to after a hit 51%.
Wait, hold on. I play ball. That just can't be right. Are you saying a player hitting 4 shots in a row is basically just like flipping a coin and getting 4 heads? No magic involved?
That's pretty much what the clustering illusion is about. Our intuitions about random sequences. They're faulty.
How so?
We expect randomness to look like constant alternation. Hit, miss, hit, miss, hit, miss.
Yeah, that feels random.
But true randomness is, it's lumpy. It has streaks of 4, 5, 6 heads in a row, or 6 hits in a row. They happen purely by chance, but they look non-random to us.
Okay.
So when we see a streak like that, our brain immediately jumps to finding a cause, confidence, groove, momentum, when really it's often just the natural way chance unfolds.
So the visual evidence is so powerful, but it's misleading. How do we train ourselves not to fall for that, to trust the stats over what we see?
Well, part of it is just recognizing this happens everywhere. It's not just sports. Think about the German V-1 and V-2 bombs during World War II hitting London.
Okay.
People living there were convinced the bombs fell in clusters. Certain neighborhoods felt way more dangerous, others felt weirdly safe.
Yeah, I can totally picture that. If my street gets hit hard and the next one over is fine, I'm thinking, they're targeting us?
Yeah.
It feels intentional.
Exactly. It feels strategic. But after the war, they did statistical analysis on the impact points. Randomly dispersed across the city, the visual impression of clusters, one area devastated, another untouched. It's just an unavoidable side effect of random scattering. The illusion of order was powerful, compelling, but it was just chance.
Wow. Okay, so we invent order in chaos. That's one pitfall. But what happens when we don't even have all the information? When we only see half the picture?
Now you're leading us into the next big cognitive trap, the bias of available information.
Okay.
Let's go back to that adoption myth for a second. To really know if adoption causes later conception, you need to look at 4 groups of people, right?
Yeah.
It's often set up in what they call a 2x2 table.
A 2x2 table. Okay, sounds technical, but it's just about looking at the stories we don't usually hear, isn't it? What are the 4 boxes?
Exactly right. You need to track couples who, first, adopt and conceive. That's the story we hear.
Right, the happy ending.
Second, couples who adopt but don't conceive. Third, couples who don't adopt but do conceive naturally later on. And fourth, couples who don't adopt and also don't conceive.
Okay, got it. 4 groups. But yeah, our attention, the media's attention, it's all laser focused on that first group, isn't it? Adopt and conceive. That's the miracle story.
Precisely. We over-rely on what's called confirmatory information. We see these heartwarming positive cases and we think, aha, proof.
We mistake a few examples for a general rule.
Yes. We ignore the essential comparison groups. What about all the couples who adopt and sadly don't conceive? We don't hear those stories as much. And what about the couples who do conceive later without ever adopting? They're the crucial control group.
So those are the missing pieces of data. The belief hangs around because the stories that seem to support it are the most memorable, the most available.
And this whole problem of incomplete or absent data, it perfectly explains why things like job interviews feel so effective to the people doing the hiring, even if the objective results say they're not adding much value. This is selection bias.
Okay, how does the missing data trick the interviewers here?
Well, think about it. When a decision maker, like an admissions officer or a hiring manager, selects only the candidates they think are best, they only get to see how that selected group performs later on. They have absolutely no way of knowing how the candidates they rejected would have done if they'd been given the chance.
Right. You didn't hire person B, so you'll never know if they would have been a superstar or a total flop. That information is just gone.
It's completely absent information. And this gets even trickier if the pool of applicants is already really strong to begin with.
What do you?
Imagine a top-tier university interviewing PhD candidates who all graduated top of their class from elite undergrad programs. The base rate of success, the overall quality of the pool before the interview is already incredibly high.
So pretty much anyone they pick is likely to succeed anyway, regardless of how good the interview was at predicting it.
Exactly. The gatekeepers look around later, see all the successful people they admitted, and they think, wow, our selection process, our interviews, they really work.
Yeah, we picked winners.
They see the successes as proof they made good predictions. But they can't see the counterfactual with the people they rejected also have succeeded. It becomes this closed loop, confirming their own perceived skill.
Actually kind of scary. It means some of our most important selection processes could just be running on confirmation bias, mistaking a good applicant pool for good judgment.
It's a definite risk.
Okay, so we see patterns that aren't there. We focus only on the information that confirms our beliefs.
Yeah.
What's the third big error? You mentioned something about misinterpreting things.
Yes. The third one is maybe the most subtle because it happens constantly and we're always inventing explanations for it. It's the regression fallacy.
Regression fallacy.
It's based on a straightforward statistical fact. Whenever you have 2 variables that aren't perfectly correlated, and in real life, things are almost never perfectly correlated, then extreme values on one variable tend to be followed by less extreme values on the other. Think of it as things tending back towards the average.
So if I have an absolutely amazing record-breaking day at work, my next day probably won't be quite as amazing. It'll likely be closer to my normal performance.
Exactly. An extraordinary performance is usually followed by a more ordinary one. The peak is temporary, That's regression to the mean.
Okay, that makes sense statistically. So where's the fallacy part?
The fallacy is that we fail to recognize this purely statistical tendency. Instead, when we see something extreme followed by something more average, we invent elaborate causal stories to explain it.
Ah, okay. Like jinxes or slumps.
Precisely. The classic example is the Sports Illustrated jinx.
Oh yeah, everyone knows about that.
Yeah.
Athlete gets on the cover, then their performance tanks. It's cursed.
Well, think about when an athlete gets on the cover. It's usually when their performance has been absolutely extraordinary, right? Way above their usual level. That's what makes them newsworthy.
Makes sense.
Statistically, what's most likely to happen after an extraordinary peak?
They'll probably perform a bit closer to their average next time. Regression.
Exactly. So the drop-off in performance after the cover story is often real. But the interpretation blaming a magazine jinx or sudden bad luck, that's the fallacy. We're attributing causality to a statistical inevitability.
We're inventing a spooky reason instead of just accepting statistical normalcy.
Wow. And this fallacy has really big implications, especially for how we think about things like reward and punishment. Think about parenting or teaching.
Okay, how does regression mess things up there?
Yeah.
Let's say a teacher punishes bad behavior.
Right. Punishment usually happens after a particularly bad performance, right? A really terrible test score, a major screw up. It's an extreme low point.
Yep.
What does regression predict will happen next? Just by chance.
The next performance will likely be better, closer to the student's average.
Exactly. So the teacher punishes the behavior improves naturally due to regression, and the teacher concludes.
The punishment worked.
Right, it appears effective. Now flip it. What about reward?
Okay, reward is usually given after an exceptionally good performance. A perfect score, amazing helpfulness, a peak.
And what does regression predict will happen after that peak?
The next performance will likely be not quite as good, closer to the average again.
So the teacher gives praise or a reward, the performance dips slightly purely due to regression, and the teacher thinks,
Oh great, I rewarded them and now they're slacking off. Or maybe praise doesn't work.
Precisely. It appears ineffective or even counterproductive. The source material puts it really well. Regression effects basically punish the administration of reward and reward the administration of punishment.
Oh man, that is kind of depressing. It means we're almost statistically wired to believe punishment works better than reward, just because when we tend to apply them relative to random fluctuations in performance.
It leads people to form these completely spurious beliefs about what's effective just by misinterpreting normal statistical variance.
Okay, this deep dive has been eye-opening. We see patterns in randomness, the clustering illusion. We jump to conclusions based on incomplete or biased information that available data trap. And we invent causes for simple statistical regression.
Yeah, these aren't like rare mistakes. These cognitive habits seem pretty deeply wired into how we process the world. We're always looking for causes, for order, for meaning. We probably won't ever just eliminate these tendencies entirely.
So if we can't just switch them off, what's the strategy? How do we fight back against these illusions?
The key seems to be developing compensatory mental habits, like consciously overriding the intuitive leap.
Okay.
When you're thinking about a relationship between two things, like adoption and conception, you have to actively ask about the missing information. Force yourself to think, okay, what do the other 3 cells in that 2x2 table look like?
Seek out the counterexamples, the non-stories.
Exactly. And when something unusual happens, like a sudden change in performance, good or bad, pause before jumping to a causal story like jinx or momentum, ask yourself, could this just be regression? What's the statistical alternative explanation here?
So it requires deliberately looking for the data that isn't right in front of you, the explanations that aren't the most obvious or satisfying, overriding the gut feeling.
That's the challenge. And, speaking of mental habits and training, there's a really surprising finding in the source material about education and reasoning.
Oh yeah, what's that? You'd think maybe studying something super logical like, physics or formal logic would be the best training.
That seems intuitive, right? Those fields have clear deterministic laws.
Yeah.
But some studies comparing graduate students found something different.
What?
It seems that training in the probabilistic sciences, fields like psychology and economics, the ones that grapple with messy, uncertain, real-world stuff, like we've been talking about today.
Wow.
That kind of training might actually be uniquely effective in teaching people how to reason soundly about everyday life.
Wait, why would studying the messy stuff make you reason better?
Well, The idea is that the sheer complexity and uncertainty forces you to constantly confront these cognitive biases head-on. You have to think about things like regression, sample bias, missing data, correlation versus causation, because clear-cut answers are rare.
You're always wrestling with ambiguity.
Exactly. And get this, one study tracked grad students for 2 years, those studying social sciences. They showed about a 70% increase on tests of statistical and methodological reasoning.
70%, that's huge.
70%. Compared to students in fields like chemistry or even law, who showed basically no improvement, 0% on those same reasoning skills over the 2 years.
Wow, 0.
Pretty much 0. So the conclusion, or at least the suggestion, is that struggling to make sense of the messy, probabilistic nature of human behavior and social phenomena might be the best practice there is for learning to think clearly and avoid these kinds of errors in general.
So the messiness of the world, understanding its uncertainty, is actually the key to spotting the simple ways we fool ourselves.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? Maybe embracing the uncertainty is the best way to find clarity.
That is definitely something to think about. A great place to leave it for this deep dive.